Alright guys, we're going to do the notes on conic sections. So go in your notes packet and skip the section on key numbers and turn to page 24 in your notes packet on conic sections. So the first part, we're just going to talk about when they're already in graphing format like this, we're going to remind ourselves how to graph them. Okay, so the one we're going to start with is the parabola. Okay, this is in vertex form here on the left, where H and K are your vertex. So you change the sign of H, but you keep the sign of K. And that's the x-coordinate of your vertex, and H is the x-coordinate, and K is the y-coordinate of your vertex. If A is positive, opens up. If A is negative, opens down. If that A coefficient is equal to 1, it's just a standard size. If A is greater than 1, absolute value of A, it's narrow. And if it's a fraction or less than 1, then it's a wide one. I like to remind myself that fractions are fat, F and F. And so the fraction ones become wide. All right, so let's graph this first one. Vertex, change the sign of the x one, so that's a 1, and keep the sign of the y, so that's a 4. So my vertex is at 1, 4. Since A is positive, it opens upward, and so this would just be a standard size opening upward, and that just gives us a nice sketch. I could plug in a 0 for x and try and solve for my y-intercept would be at 5. And that would be a nice, easy way to get a graph there too. All right, for this second one, same idea. Vertex, change the side of this one. Sign of that one, it's negative. This is like plus 0, and so the y-coordinate is at 0. So my vertex is at negative 2, comma, just kidding, negative 2, comma 0. Ignore that. And then since it's negative, it opens downward. Negative 2 means it's going to be pretty skinny. And so it would just do something like this. And again, you could find that y-intercept by plugging in 0 for x. So I'd have negative 2 times 2 squared would give me a negative 8. And so my y-intercept somewhere down here at negative 8. Okay, so that's just a brief one for parabola when it is in vertex form. When it's not in vertex form, then we complete the square to get it into vertex form, or we can do the shortcut negative b over 2a, and I'll talk about that later. All right, circle, you guys remember how to graph circles. So for a circle, this is our standard, x minus h squared, y minus k squared. In this case, you change the sign of both x and k, or h and k, to get your center. R is your radius. So for this first one, my center would be at positive 1, comma 0, radius of 3. Square root gives us 3. So I go out 3, up 3, down 3, and I try and draw a nice circle. Center for this guy, negative 2, positive 3, radius square root of 4, which would give me a 2. Center at negative 2, positive 3, radius of 2. If I'm going too fast and you guys need to pause this video so you can catch up, please feel free to pause. All right, ellipse. Very similar to circle, but you're going to see there's numbers on the bottom now. Those numbers on the bottom tell you how far to go in that direction. So since A is under x, that's going to give you how far to go in the x direction. B is going to tell you how far to go in the y direction. So A tells you to go horizontal x direction, B will be vertical y direction. Same thing with the h and the k for your center. And then you just connect. You know that this is an ellipse because everything's positive. It's always equal to 1. All right, so here we go. Center 0, comma 0. I take the square root of this, so my a value would be 3. Square root of this, so my b value would be 2. Start at 0, 0. In my x direction, because the 3 came from under the x, so in my x direction, I go out 3. In my y direction, I go 2. And then we connect and we get a nice ellipse or an oval. Same idea with this one. Center, change the signs, 2, comma 3. From that center point in the x direction, I take the square root of 1, so I get a 1. So in my x direction, I go 1 and 1. In my y direction, square root of 25 is 5, so I have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's my nice ellipse. All right, hopefully this is all review. You guys remember this. Hyperbola. Hyperbola you always recognize because one of those, either the x or the y term, will be a negative. When you've got that negative, you automatically know it's hyperbola, still equal to 1. Still change your signs for h and k for your center. You still go in the x and y directions, but this is where you create that reference rectangle, and then you draw the asymptotes in the diagonals there. So let's go ahead and walk through the first one. Center is at 0, 0. In the x direction, just like I would do for the ellipse, I'm going to go square root of 4, so I go 2. In the y direction, I go square root of 9, which is 3. And that draws now my reference rectangle. Okay, it's no longer an ellipse. I draw the rectangle, and then I draw asymptotes. They need to go through the corners and through the center. This is my asymptote. That's going to give the shape of my hyperbola. Draw those asymptotes. Now the question is, does the hyperbola go up and down or left and right? And the way you know is you look back at your original equation, and which either variable was positive. Now notice this negative goes with the y, meaning that the x was positive. So the negative sticks with y, x is positive, so therefore it goes in the x direction. This is going to be a horizontal hyperbola. So I start at that end vertex right there, and I go in the x direction. So I'm going to the right, and I'm going to the left. Again, if you guys need more time to pause it, feel free to pause the video while everybody catches up. Okay, for this next one, got to be really careful. When I'm going to write my center point, I don't just go with the first one and then the second one. I go with x first. Always, always, always x first. So x minus 3, that's where I get the x coordinate of my vertex. So the x, or of my center. So the x coordinate there, change the sign, is 3. The y coordinate with the y term, change the sign, is negative 2. So my center here is at 3, negative 2. Okay? Then I go in my x direction because 25 is under x. In my x direction, I'm going to go 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In my y direction, I go 2. And I create that reference rectangle. Same idea, I do my asymptotes. I do the other asymptote. And then in this case, the y is the one that's positive. This negative goes with the x. So y is positive, meaning this one's going to go up and down. And those asymptotes really should be your guide as to how wide your hyperbola is or how narrow it is. So use the asymptotes, go all the way to your asymptotes for your graphs. Okay, in the next video, I will do the next page, 25, which is about completing the square before you can graph these and get them in the graphing format.